Greetings, everyone. So it's crazy to be sitting in front of you in front of Ableton Live because it's been a long time since I've done an Ableton Live video. Honestly, I didn't know if I would ever do one again. If you're not familiar with my story, in the last couple of years, I've gone almost completely deaf in both ears. And no, it's not because of loud music. It's because I ended up with this thing called Meniere's disease. And so I'm now deaf way beyond what hearing aids can help, and I have terrible distortions, and which is why I can now pretty much only hear through a cochlear implant, which I have on my left side. On my right side, I'm due to get a second cochlear implant probably in December. I have just a tiny, tiny shred of hearing left on this right side, but it's so distorted, it's not even worth it. And so you're going to see me wear these headphones today. I'm not even bothering with putting it on the right side. And then on my left side, it's not going over my ear because there's nothing going on in here. It's sitting on top of my processor, actually, because on my processor is where my mics are for where I hear things through my cochlear implant. So I'm just sitting it on top of there so that all the sounds that are coming in are just hitting the microphones on my processor, which is a little bit crazy. So I'm pretty much doing this just bionically. So it's a little crazy that I'm trying to do this just through my CI because, music through a cochlear implant kind of sounds like a bit of a thin AM radio. I can't understand a lot of things, and I don't have really any low end. And so it's a bit of a challenge, but, it's been a couple of years. I've kind of worked through some things emotionally, and I really want to try to do music, but it's certainly been a challenge. By the time this video hits, hopefully my song will be released. I just actually finished a full song. Today, I kind of want to show you my process of how I made that happen. Pretty much just producing only with bionic parts. So I actually have advanced bionics for my cochlear implant. And when I first started doing this, I was using the AutoSense program. And I very quickly learned that is not good for mixing music, because what AutoSense does is it's trying to automatically sense the most important sound in your environment and make that really prominent, which is great for, everyday life, but not great for music. Now, I do have a music program which I've never used, and the reason why I've never used the music program is because it is intended to not gate anything at all. So there's no guardrails, there's no protection. It just lets everything through, with the idea that you're supposed to be able to enjoy the natural dynamics of music. But the problem is you're very rarely in a situation where you're isolated and only hearing just music, right? I mean, if I'm in my car and I try to use that setting, well, I've got the air conditioner running, I've got cars, road noise, and it's not going to be just music. So it does not sound good. It sounds harsh and loud and terrible. But it's really helpful when working with music in production, because if I'm wearing headphones, I'm pretty much kind of blocking out everything else so that the only thing hitting my mics is the music. So it actually works really well. In AutoSense, it was kind of trying to basically mix the music for me. It was not good. So the music setting at least gives me a fair shot. At least to try to do this, and it's not great still. The music setting is I find really, really harsh on the high end, and pretty brutal, but it's not trying to govern things for me, which is nice. The other thing I'll tell you technically is, when I tried to do this, I tried to stream it through Bluetooth, and that was a bit of a deal breaker because there was too much latency. If you don't know what latency is, it's a fancy word for lag. Now, the funny thing is, I have always done everything by ear. I mean, ever since I was little. I mean, when I was 10, I was playing along with the radio in perfect key. I've always done everything by ear. I've obviously mixed by ear. And so when I wanted to jump back into music, I realized I can't do that anymore. I can sing, but I can't always tell if I'm in tune or not. And I know I'm not always in tune, which is it's so weird to me. So I'm having to use a completely different, approach for this. So before all this happened, when I used to start a track, I would actually build the track out, right? Like most people, I would build music first, and then I would add vocals second. And I can't really do that because I can't sing along in the key that I'm supposed to be in. So I had to do something different. So I tried an approach where I just got a drum beat going and just started singing with it. with the idea that I would figure out what key that is and then build the track around it. And I think it actually worked out pretty well. So I'm going to kind of replicate this for you today. So I just started with a drum beat. And the other kind of sad thing is I can't really play along with a click anymore. I'm pretty sure that is because of still the little bit of latency that I do have, and just with my processor in general. I'll try to play along with a click here, but you're gonna see it's not gonna be perfect. But we can fix that. So I got a little drum kit going on here. So let's try to record it in. I prefer to play things live. I don't like drawing in MIDI. It's super boring. I mean, I have to do it a lot now, but I've always had the running joke with my students. It's like, I would rather go to the dentist than draw MIDI in. So I'm going to try to play it, dang it. So let's record a little bit and we'll fix it later. The end was bad. Okay, so I know I'm off. So I'm just going to select all these notes and use Ableton Live to quantize these. It's going to lock them all to the closest location where it thinks it should be. That's really cool, but that's not what I played. So I think I put that on the 4, and I think this is also early. Nope, that's actually cool. Okay, that wasn't too bad. So let's take this and let's just duplicate it to give us kind of a beat to sing with. And then I'm just going to try to sing something along. And I kind of had something in my head before I hit play on this video. So for me, hearing things in either the 2nd or 3rd octave on piano is the easiest for me to try to understand. And so I was kind of trying to play around with something in possibly B minor. But what's funny is, so I can play these 3 notes. And that sounds like a major scale to me. I should also mention I'm taking advantage of Ableton Live's option to just display this scale, which is also really helpful for me. So I'm going to try to start on a B. I'm shooting for B minor. Let's see how close I get, and you know, if I'm off, we can fix it. I'll show you what we're going to use to fix it. You are stronger than you think. Hold on, hold on. Okay. I started behind the drums, which is fine. I'm gonna have to fix the timing anyway, because check this out. You are stronger than... There's that latency. Come on. Okay. You are stronger than you think. Okay, so let's bring in you. Okay, look at that. So check it out. I have a tuner on this track, which is, you know, really helpful. I love Ableton Live's tuner. It's extremely helpful in situations like this for me now. So if I zoom in on just this note, you can see I hit pretty close to that B, which is great. So now let's go to one of my favorite plugins, Melodyne, and see if we can tighten this up a little bit. So when I did my previous track, which hopefully will be out by the time this video airs, the first time I did the vocal, it was super pitchy and all over the place, which is crazy for someone who grew up like with an ear and who is like technically trained and was like a music theory ninja. And now I, you know, can't even sing like in tune all the time, which is really weird. So we're going to let Melodyne tell us really where we are. So I'm going to hit transfer and just hit play, and then it's going to show me where my notes are, and then we're going to put them where they're supposed to be. I could set this to snap to a certain pitch grid, but the reason I don't like that is because if I'm singing any notes outside of the key intentionally, like bends and things, I can't snap to those. So I like to kind of fly by the seat of my pants with no snap. And then what I have to do is I just rely on Ableton Live because I have my handy dandy piano roll here. And it's going to tell me, you know, what notes are in the scale. So if we're in B minor, let's just take the first 3 notes. So they're supposed to be B, C sharp, D, B minor, right? That's what that says. Sounds like a major scale to me. It is not. Okay, So I started out on a B. Fantastic. So B, C sharp, D is what I should have sang. You are stronger. And I didn't quite get there. See? I'm flat. B. So let's move this up to C sharp, D, back down to C sharp, and then this should be a B again, but I'm flat, see? Now let's hear it. You are stronger than you think. You, da, da. That should be an octave, right? So that means this should be a B, I'm flat here too. You are stronger than you think. I think that's supposed to be the 7, right? It's almost better just to sing it in my head than even try to hear it on the piano. It sounds terrible trying to figure it out on the piano, but I'm trying. So it's supposed to be B to A, right? You are stronger than you think. Okay, B to A. You think. That should be right. Hold on. Let's see what pitch that's supposed to be. 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold on. 6, 6, 5, 4. Okay. 6, 5, 4. Which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. G, G, F sharp, E is what I should have sang. Hold on. I wasn't too far off. G, G, G. We're gonna have to split this note, which we can do in Melodyne. So let's do that. Let's pull it down to F sharp. You hold on. That's E. Hold on. I'm kind of sharp a little bit, aren't I? I can't really tell, to be honest with you. Hold on. Hold on. And that should be a G again. And that should be the same note again, right? F sharp. You on. Hold on. Na na na. Is that a straight line? 6, 5, 4, 3, right? G, F sharp, E, D. God, look how off I was on that one. Is that right? I think that's right. G, F sharp, E, D. See, all this checking, it's just, it takes forever. 6, 5, 4, 3. Okay, I think this is right. I know there's some wiggly stuff in there and I could fix that later, but I think we've at least gotten my vocals tuned. I can't believe all the things I took for granted. So everything else, like let's talk about doing a bass line. So again, because I can really only hear things in a couple of octaves, I'm not going to start with a bass sound because I'm not going to be able to understand it in that low of a range. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing where, okay, I know I'm in B minor. Cool. So now I have to figure out what chords am I hearing in my head that go with that. So I think it's starting on a 1 chord. So I'm just going to draw out the notes of the chords first. So I think I'm going to start on a 1. B. Now I could go to a 3. It's on D. That's going to be a major chord. D, F sharp, A. Yeah, it's a major 3. I have to think about what the chords are first, even though I'm doing a bass line. Does that make any sense? So, and then I'll go back and just use the root notes. And we can use this to make pads or something later. Okay, so just, my theory teacher would yell at me for the voicing, but just so I can try to figure out what this is. So maybe a 4 chord next? I mean, it's kind of boring. 1 to the 3, to the 4, to the 3. But let's just do that for right now. So it would be B, and then it would be 3, the major 3, because we're in a minor key. So that means my bass line is going to be B to D, E to D, if I'm not using any fancy inversions, which I'm not even thinking about that right now. I'm just going to copy this to my bass line, and I kind of picked out a little bass sound, which I think would be pretty cool. So I'm just going to erase all these top notes, and then that leaves me with a bass line. So this is the bass sound that I chose. So first of all, we want successive notes. We don't want just a bang. So let's duplicate this out. So it's like a running bass line. Obviously it needs to be lower. So let's play with just the pitch setting here and bump it down an octave. That sounds more bassy, right? Okay, I can't tell really, because again, once things get out of that octave for me, it's just really, really hard to hear. Okay, this is, let's duplicate this now so we got something running. And then, you know, we've got chords here. We might as well take these chords and throw them on like this pad instrument. This is where things get really murky for me. I can't understand chords really still at all. Okay, now this is gonna sound terrible to me, but I'm gonna play it. Again, that's really bad voice leading, so maybe let's try to do a little bit better than that. So again, with chords, I can't tell what this, I don't know, y'all. I don't know what this sounds like. It sounds bad, but I'm gonna leave it in. So, like, let's say we were gonna try to mix this. Now, again, the funny thing is, should I be mixing anything anymore? Probably not. I certainly can't really mix professionally anymore, but I'm at least trying to mix my own stuff. And, you know, I can at least start with things that I know are educated choices. I'm going to choose a compressor and throw it on the bass so that my super lows are not fighting with each other. So this is the first time I've used this new compressor in this new version of Live. So I'm gonna key off of the kick drum. So it's just gonna duck. I'm just sidechaining it, so it's gonna duck every time the kick comes in, so that I have a little bit of clearance for that kick to cut through. Okay, and then like things with my pad, like I can't hear what's going on, but I know just from mixing things that I don't need the super lows in that pad. The super lows are gonna mess up my mix, so I'm just gonna make a cut that I would probably normally make. Not a lot going on in there anyway, so it looks like my educated guess was right. There's not a lot of low end in that pad, which is great. And then my vocal, I'll probably just, you know, cut some super lows out of my vocal when the track's full in. I'm not gonna want all those lows, you know, mucking up everything else. So then, you know, let's just kind of do some basic mixing. I'm doing everything I would normally do, right? I'm starting with my kick drum and my drums and my bass. And I'm just having to use my eyes a lot more, you know? And if I were to use a plugin that like did something to an instrument, you know, tightened it up, you know, or whatever, I would have to, again, like, okay, that's cool, but can I really hear the difference? I would just have to use an EQ to look at, okay, well, how exactly is it adjusting this, and do I want that added to that mix? And so it takes me a lot longer, and I have to really rely on my eyes as opposed to my ears. So that looks okay, and then let's bring in the pad. Maybe just as a starting point. Again, the pad sounds terrible to me. You know, there's so much of this that's just so scary. Let's try to mix the vocal in. Let's gain up the vocal a little bit. It's kind of low. So let's just gain it up at the source. You are stronger than you think. So let's maybe put some, I don't know, is a little bit of reverb on this vocal. It's kind of dry. You are stronger than you think. I'm gonna move the EQ after to make sure I'm not getting any bass rumblings in there. You are stronger than you think. Hold on, hold on. Let's take the pads out. You are stronger than you think. Hold on, hold on. Man, I'm hearing all kinds of harmonics and stuff in my vocal, and it, you know, I might have to work and like really do some frequency sweeps and see if there's any resonances in there that are nasty, which, you know, I can do if it's just like a vocal and it's just isolated. I'm kind of okay at that. That would be something I'd want to work on. And the pads just, you know, you are stronger than you think. It's not a taste thing. It's not like, I mean, this is Serum, so it's gonna be a halfway decent sounding pad. If you're not familiar with Serum, it's a great, it's a great plugin. But I hear that and I'm like, it sounds terrible. And I, again, like so much of this is just like, I just have to kind of trust that it's okay. So, I mean, should I let someone else mix my music? Probably, but that's the part of the process that I love the most. I mean, I went to school, like I went to Berkeley grad school and like studied with some of the best and like learned how to mix. And I love that part of the process and I don't want to give that up. So I'm going to try to do everything I can to hang on to that process. Now, you know, is this so as a result this may not really sound competitive with everything else that's out there, and that's fine for me. I'm in this for the process and not the plays. I could care less if 100 people listen to this on Spotify. I really love that part of the process. And so if it sounds a little bit not great, honestly, we're living in a age and space where the market is sometimes okay with that. I mean, you listen to Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever and you listen to all the distortion on that track, that's intentional, and look at how successful that song is. So there's never been a better time to, you know, roll the dice on some production and maybe some mixing risks, and maybe some people will listen to it and think, oh, maybe it's intentional that she did it that way. I just, you know, I'm not trying to get a hit. I'm not trying to get discovered. I just want to share what I've made because I'm really proud of it more than ever. I'm proud of myself for trying to get through this process. You know, if you would have asked me, you know, 6 months ago, I wouldn't have even probably tried, you know, and again, like the song I just released, you know, it's probably a little bit too busy for what I can handle, but honestly, I'm used to like 50 track sessions. And so it was a big discipline for me to pare that down to like 10 to 15 tracks. You know, that's even that in and of itself is crazy for me. So I'm encouraged after this that there might be hope for me to continue making music. I sure am going to try. And again, if nobody listens to it, or if some people are like, yeah, that doesn't sound that great. I mean, honestly, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I just enjoy doing this so much. I just want to try and give it a shot again. So let me know what you think in the comments if you have a cochlear implant and you want to try producing music or want to try again. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts, your fears. I've had all of them. And I'd certainly love to hear from everybody out there. So we'll see everybody later.